You know, when you think of Audi, you probably think of engineering, maybe a bit of obsession, right? But their story is so much more than that. It's a story about a brand built on a crazy idea, nearly destroyed by a massive scandal, and now betting its entire future on electricity and Formula One. It is, without a doubt, one of the wildest rides in the car industry. So let's get into it.
It really all kicks off with a question you would never expect. How on earth does a simple piece of a kid's homework end up being the foundation for a global automotive empire? Seriously, the answer to that question pretty much tells you everything about the DNA of this company.
So picture this. It's 1909. The company's founder, a brilliant engineer named August Horch, has just been kicked out of his own company. And to make matters worse, a court says he can't even use his last name for his new business. He was completely stuck.
Okay, so during this super tense meeting to figure out a new name, get this. A business partner's son is just sitting in the corner of the room, quietly doing his Latin homework. He overhears the whole debate and chimes in. See, the name Horch in German means listen. And you know what the Latin word for listen is? Audi. Just like that, the problem was solved. The name stuck. Fast forward to 1932, in the middle of the Great Depression, Audi merges with 3 other German car makers, including Horch's original company. And that's where we get the iconic 4-ring logo, 1 ring for each company.
So that's the name and the logo. But the modern Audi, the one we really know today, well, its identity was forged in the snow and mud of rally racing. This is where their famous slogan, Vorsprung durch Technik, progress through technology, went from just being a cool marketing line to an undeniable fact. And it all started with one engineer just watching something. An Audi engineer was out in the brutal Finnish winter and saw this little military jeep, the VW Iltis, just tearing through the snow and ice like it was nothing. He realized its secret weapon was 4-wheel drive, and right there, a light bulb went off. So he starts this secret project back at the factory, basically cramming that rugged military tech into a sleek performance coupe. The result? The legendary Audi Quattro. This car didn't just compete in the World Rally Championship, it completely rewrote the rulebook, dominating the sport for years. And this is the crucial part. That one car single-handedly changed everyone's perception of Audi. It catapulted them into the premium league. Right alongside the big dogs, it was a total game changer. But here's the thing. That same obsession with technology, the very thing that built the brand's reputation, would also lead to its absolute darkest hour. In 2015, that promise of progress through technology wasn't just broken, it was completely shattered. The financial hit was just incredible. This €800 million fine you see here, that was just Audi's direct penalty in Germany. For the entire Volkswagen Group, the parent company, this crisis, known as Dieselgate, would end up costing them over $38 billion, a truly catastrophic number. And this little piece of software was the smoking gun, a defeat device. It was essentially a bit of code designed to cheat. It was smart enough to know when the car was on a rolling road in a lab for an emissions test, and it would turn on all the pollution controls. But the second it was out on a real road, it turned them off. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the scale of the betrayal. On the one hand, Audi was all in on marketing its clean diesel tech, even using its wins at the famous Le Mans 24-hour race to prove it. But the reality? 2.1 million Audis were driving around spewing toxic NOx emissions at up to 40 times the legal limit. The gap between what they promised and what they delivered was just immense. A scandal like that forces you to change, or you die. Audi had to completely reinvent itself. So, what did they do? They made a massive, incredibly high-stakes pivot, betting the entire company on 2 things: electricity and the biggest, most glamorous racing series in the world. And this is the price tag for that reinvention, 41 billion euros. This is the biggest investment plan in the company's entire history. It's not a test, it's an all-in bet on a completely new future. So where's all that cash going? Well, it's basically a 3-pronged attack. A huge chunk is going into electrification, building new electric car platforms they're even sharing with Porsche. Another big piece is going into the brutal challenge of becoming a real software company. And finally, a massive investment in creating a full-blown Formula One team. Now, if you look at their traditional German rivals, you can really see how Audi is trying to carve out its own path. They're still behind BMW and Mercedes in terms of how many cars they sell, but their strategy is different. They're leaning on Porsche for their EV tech, and most notably, they're jumping into Formula One with a full factory team, while BMW is completely out of the picture. It's a bold move. But here's the reality check.
Throwing 41 billion euros at a problem doesn't automatically guarantee success. The road ahead for Audi is packed with some absolutely massive risks.
And success really depends on them navigating these huge challenges. I mean, can a traditional car company really compete on software with companies like Tesla? Can they survive potential U.S. import tariffs without any factories in America? And maybe the biggest question of all, can they win in China, their largest market, where local brands are innovating at lightning speed? These are the billion-dollar questions they have to answer.
Which really brings us back to the core of it all. This is a company whose name came from a boy's Latin homework, whose reputation was built by a rally car that changed everything, and whose very existence was threatened by a scandal of its own making. So the ultimate question is this: has this massive, expensive bet on electric cars and Formula One been enough to truly rebuild that progress through technology identity for a whole new era? Honestly, only time is going to tell.